Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryann Gillen, and on this show, ambitious women learn how to create a life they're obsessed with, without the hustle, without the grind, without torturing ourselves, and without following anybody else's rules. This podcast is all about creating our own rules, owning our identity as creator, and hitting every single goal we set for ourselves. Together, we're redefining success on our terms and building lives that look as good as they feel. Let's dive in. Welcome to the very first episode of the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryann Gillen, and I'm excited and maybe a little bit nervous to be here with you today for a couple of reasons. One, I am nervous because I have launched several different podcasts over the years. If you've been following, maybe you know that, maybe you don't. But for whatever reason, this one just feels a little different. I think it's because it's really aligned in work that I really love, and it feels really, really important. And I think that's maybe why I'm a little nervous. I'm excited too, because we're doing both video and audio. So regardless of where you are, whether you are a YouTube person who likes to see my face when I talk to you, or whether you are an audio person and you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and that's where you're listening, I'm just excited that you're here. If you're watching this on the video, I fidget, I move, I use my hands a lot. I talk really fast. But I love you and I'm excited that you're here. And I cannot wait to share this journey with you because this feels like such an important journey. And it certainly feels like a journey that we are going on together in becoming the uncensored self. And so who is the uncensored self? What is the uncensored self? I always say that the uncensored self is who are you when you're not being who the world taught you to be. And my guess is because you follow me, because you're listening to the show, there's a part of you that knows that you are the creator of your reality and that knows that maybe something in your life is not fully aligned, and that you are on a journey to total alignment and total fulfillment in your life. But I always say that it comes back to being more of you. And that sounds cliche, but I'm going to hopefully over the course of our time together in this show, if you come back and you listen to us every week, really talk about how do we pull that apart? How is who am I being really truly impacting what is going on in my world? And what does that look like? So my goal here is to really create that for you in a meaningful way. And I want to talk a little bit about reinvention before I move on, because I have reinvented myself, as I mentioned, a handful of different times over the years, but I've done it because I was out of alignment. And every single time I found myself out of alignment in the past 5 years, I became a full-time entrepreneur in June of 2019 on the heels of the maternity leave of my youngest. If you are somewhere in your life right now where you don't like where you are, you don't like the amount of money you're making, you don't like the work that you're doing, you don't like the clients that you're working with, you don't like really anything in your life, whether it's business, whether it's personal, you can change it. You can change it. You can reinvent yourself as many times as you need to. So a lot of this show is going to be about how do I reinvent myself into somebody who I want to be, because many of us are not who we desire to be, who we know we're capable of being. We are not living up to our full potential. One of my biggest fears in life is not living up to my potential, is leaving something on the table when I know how truly capable I am of creating. So I really want to start there and talk about it. But let's talk about really the significance of the uncensored self, because really understanding yourself and moving past passive consumption. If you followed me for a while, you've maybe heard me say that I have, because you're smart, you're successful, you like to learn. We've been taught that learning is really valuable. So you've studied this work, right? You've learned this work. And there's learning this work, understanding this work, and then doing this work. And for me, I was learning and I was learning and I was learning and I was consuming in the books and the podcast and all the things, but I wasn't doing what the work was telling me to do. And so again, full understanding of the concepts of intentional reality creation, still living a somewhat mediocre life. And so what I want this podcast to be is a place where how do we go from idea to actual practical implication or implementation? And that's why I was so hungry for information, because the information was there. And I was like, I get it. I create my reality. I get it. My thoughts are creative. What does that mean for me? How do I do? And so my goal here is to take these spiritual concepts, these somewhat concepts that maybe you think are weird or whatever the case may be, and bring them into practical, how do I make this work in my life? How do I become somebody different when I don't even know who the hell I am, right? So that's what I'm here to teach you. And one of the things, this is a Bob Proctor-ism, if you will, is that repetition is the mother of all learning, right? Repetition is the mother of all learning. So I'm going to invite you, as you listen to these podcasts, as you watch these videos, that you listen to them more than once. Listening to something once gives you an intellectual understanding of it. But when you can listen to it over and over and over again and study it and hear it and understand it, that's when implementation happens. But we move so fast because we have been taught in this world that we have to move fast, right? Speed and urgency are very important, that we listen to the book and we're like, that was really good. And we put it on the shelf and we keep going. Or we listen to that podcast in our drive in the car or while we're doing dishes or folding laundry, and then we don't revisit it. But one of the things that I have changed is in my world, I don't just listen to something once. I listen to it 3 or 4 or 5 times. So it's not just about consuming more content, it's understanding the content. How do I embody what this person is teaching me in this moment? And so I consider each one of these podcasts a teaching that is available to you to better understand you, to better understand your role as creator, to better understand universal law. And the way that we do that is through repetition. So I'm going to invite you to do something differently with this particular podcast. And don't just add this to the dozens of podcasts that you listen to in a week, but make it something that you study. Make it a place that you come often. And the study is not of me, guys, it's of you. Intentional reality creation, manifestation is a study of you. It's a study of you, knowing you, understanding you, loving you, owning your power. So you're not here listening to this podcast to learn from Ryann Gillen. You're here listening to this podcast because you want to learn who you are and you want to own your role as creator so that you can create the life that has been promised to you. And that's not in a study of me. It's in a study of you. That's why it is the uncensored self. Who are you when you're not being who the world taught you to be? Because when you understand that, you can operate and move through the world in such an empowered and powerful way. And that's what we're here to do. So we're going to talk about universal law, natural law, intentional reality creation. Let's talk about that a little bit. Why do I use the term intentional reality creation instead of just manifestation? Because that's very mainstream. And I will tell you, because to me, the way I understand manifestation is we are always manifesting, right? Our thoughts, feelings, and actions create. Manifestation is the changing the outside world. I want to manifest money. I want to manifest a car. I want to manifest weight loss. I want to manifest a loving relationship. I want to manifest health. And it still puts the power outside of you, in my opinion. But for me, every time I found myself trying to manifest something specific, it wasn't about me. It was about the thing that I was trying to call in. It was about the money. It was about the clients. It was about, the weight loss. It was about the relationship, whatever it was, instead of really being about me. And so when it comes to intentional reality creation, if I am the creator of my reality, and if I want to do that intentionally, again, I have to be connected to me in order to do that. So I use the term intentional reality creation because you have to own your identity as the creator of your reality to intentionally create it. Whereas manifestation to me was always more about things. That is why I use that term, is we're not just trying to manifest material things into our life. We are trying to intentionally create a life that is aligned with who we are, with what we want, with our goals, with our desires, with our heart. That's what we're here to do, is intentionally create a world that we love, to intentionally create a world that sets our soul on fire, to intentionally do work that we love, to create memories and experiences that we desire in our life. So that's why I use the word intentional reality creation instead of just manifestation, but whatever term works best for you. But that's what we're really studying here, is those universal laws, that natural law. We're going to pull in psychology. We're going to pull in physics. We're going to pull in science. We're going to pull in from all the different places that I have studied over the years, because all of you are going to need to hear something different in different seasons of your journey as well. And so I'm just really excited about digging into this. What are you going to expect from this show? It is really around a good outline, a good mix, like I had mentioned before: spirituality, metaphysics, practical life skills. And again, you're all in a different place in your journey. I always say that I draw people into my world when they know that what I have been doing isn't working anymore, or not the way that I want to do this anymore. I often say on social media, my clients have lovingly dubbed me the business therapist, and I help women turn hard money into easy money, right? The women who listen to this podcast are successful. They're powerful. They're getting shit done. Nobody looks at you and thinks, oh, poor her. They know that you have your shit together. But there's a part of you that's like, I can't continue on this path anymore. I can't continue creating this way. I can't continue creating this business, this life, whatever it is. And I want to do something different and I don't know how. And so that's usually when women wind up in my world, right? Is something isn't right. I'm not sure what it is, but something's got to give, right? And you've tried to move a lot of the external things. You've maybe done the business coaching. Maybe you've changed your business. You've changed your business model. I mean, you've done something to try to externally change, and that hasn't worked. And so that's when you're coming into my world. But when women come into my world, they're all in different levels of study of this work. So again, I'm going to bounce around to meet that, because I think that different ideas, different concepts in different ways are really, really valuable and important, because they stimulate our brain in different ways, because they stimulate new ideas and thoughts. And that's really what this is all about. How do I stimulate new ideas and thoughts so that I can become a different identity so that I can create what I desire. And so that's really kind of the expectation here. But I do want to bring together spiritual and practical because while I am really far into the spiritual right now and I'm really loving that phase of my journey right now, you're probably living in it from a very practical place. When I look around my life, when I look around my world, I don't see what I desire, or I don't have the things that I desire, or I have achieved the things, but now I'm burnt out and I don't like it anymore, right? Like that's where you are in your journey. And we're going to talk about both the practical and the spiritual, right? Like that's really what we're here to do is how do we bridge that gap so that we can make spirituality work for us in this human world, right? We are humans having a human experience. And while it is lovely to know how magical we are and how powerful we are, we're still came to this planet, this space-time reality, depending on what you believe in, to have a human experience. So practical application of the work is really important, and practical understanding of how do I make this work is really, really important to me as well. So the first thing I really want to hammer home, because I think that this is the cornerstone of this work. And when I say things like this work, this material, sometimes I will say study, I'll use words like universal law and natural law. What I mean is the body of work of, again, manifestation and intentional reality creation. That's what I'm referring to. So this work just sounds a little bit easier. So in case you're wondering where that reference comes from, but the most important part of the work in order to get the work to work for you, that was the word work a lot, is to believe in it. To believe in it. Because honestly, it is so fun to study this and theorize it and be like, oh my gosh, wouldn't that be so fun? But intentional reality creation doesn't start to work for you until you believe that it does. Until you believe in your role as the creator of your reality. So if there's one theme that you are going to hear day in, day out, what I'm going to spend some time pulling apart for you a little bit today is understanding your role as the creator of your reality. Because if you don't believe you're the creator of your reality, if you don't believe that you're the one who's causing every single thing in your life, good, bad, or other, implementing this work and making it work in your world is going to be challenging. Or you're going to be like I was, and you're going to work in fits and starts. You're going to create some things, but not be able to create in others. And then you're going to doubt the work itself. So the first thing that I want to hammer home for you today is in order for intentional reality creation to work, you have to own your identity as the creator of your reality. You have to look in the mirror and say, I created this. I'm the creator. If it's in my life, good, bad, or ugly, I created this. And there's some of you thinking right now, Ryan, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell I would have created this. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I want for my life, or my life is a shit show, or I'm unhealthy, or my relationships are unhealthy, or my financial situation is dire. You have been creating your life not on purpose, not intentionally. That's why I use the word intentional reality creation, because to date, you have been creating your reality not from a place of intentional. You have just been creating by default in the way the world taught you to create. And so the world has taught you to create. It has taught you to create by doing what other people do. It has taught you to create by following the crowd. It has taught you to create by hard work and suffer and sacrifice and force. It has taught you to create through strain and hard work and effort. It has taught you that not everybody gets to win. And the world has also taught us that you winning means somebody else loses. And none of those things are true, but it is why you have created a reality that you don't love right now, because you have been creating based on the default. So I'm going to allow you to let yourself off the hook here, because you've been creating by default. You didn't know, but now you know. And so now that you know, this is important. Now that you know that you have created everything, even the things that you didn't like, simply by your default programming, now means that you have a responsibility to change it. And if you don't change it, you're choosing it. Now that you know that you are the one creating your reality, you have a choice, because if you don't change it, you are choosing it. And I say this because this is important, because you have to know that in order to create your reality intentionally, you have to own that role. And you have to say, oh yeah, it was because I bought into this idea and that idea and this idea that helped me create this thing. So that is where I really want to get started, is really believing in yourself and your ability to create. So let's talk about how are we the creators of our reality. And I'm going to give you a couple different examples here, and it's all going to depend on where you are in your spiritual journey as to how you feel about this. Right? So some people totally align with the idea that you are a spiritual being living in a physical body. Some people like that, right? Meaning you are all energy. We hear that a lot. God consciousness, that's one as well. But the thing is that this body that you're living in right now is just a very, very, very small part of who you actually are. Your soul, your spirit is much larger than your physical body. And so when we talk about you're the creator of your reality, you're using your energy to create, it is because you are an energetic, you're not just a human in a human body who is just moving things around in the world to create. You have this beautiful giant support in your spirit and your soul in whatever really fully aligns with you. I like the word soul personally. Abraham Hicks calls it your inner being. I've heard other people to it as your higher self. In spirit, God, again, all the different things. I use all of them interchangeably because none of them matter. We're all saying the same thing. But the truth of the matter is who you see when you look in the mirror is such a small portion of who you, but when you stop just associating with this human body and you start working as this energetic spiritual being that you are, then you now have a different viewpoint, a different perspective. And so when we say it is your energy that creates, it is the energy that you're putting out into the world that you're getting back, right? That's the law of vibration and the law of attraction. Law of attraction is one of the most popular metaphysical or spiritual universal laws that we hear about. But before law of attraction is the law of vibration, right? So law of vibration essentially states that energy always moves. Energy is always moving. You're always putting out an energetic signature. And how do we know that this is true other than like science, right? EKGs and EEGs, like when there's something wrong with you, you go to the doctor and they hook you up to some electrical equipment to look at the energy running through your body. Let's start there. But then there's also the concept of like, you have been in a situation before where you have interacted with somebody and immediately didn't like them. Or on the flip side, you immediately loved them, but you were reacting to that person's energy. You didn't have any information. You just met this person 2 minutes ago, and your feelings about them is not based in what they've done and who they are, or even the words that have come out of their mouth. It is the energy. That is what you are responding to. So when we say that you are an energetic being, that you are putting out an energetic vibe, it's true. And the vibe you put out is the vibe you get back. Law of vibration, you're a vibe. Law of attraction, what vibe you put out is the vibe you get back, which is why, again, you're the creator of your reality because you have been putting out fear, worry, doubt, anxiety, stress. Am I good enough? Is this going to happen? This is so hard. I'm not good enough. Whatever it is, you've been putting that out for so long that that's what you're actually seeing in your world. And so that's what you're assuming that your reality is. And then you just keep reacting to what you're seeing. And so you just keep creating more and more and more and more and more of that. If you want to see something different, you have to put out a different energy. You have to put out a different vibe. So if you want to be abundant, you have to put out a vibe of abundance. And the instant question is, Ryan, I don't know what abundance feels like. That's what one of you is thinking right now, right? And what's wild about this, it's so funny because you're thinking, well, because I only have X number of dollars in the bank, I don't know what abundance feels like. And there's somebody out there with more money than that and less money than that feel the same way. Okay, because abundance is a feeling that has nothing to do with money. And it has everything to do with what does abundance feel like? So ask yourself, what would it feel like to be abundant? What does it mean to me to be abundant? What is the feeling of abundance? And sit and answer that question, right? For me, I'm going to tell you what the feeling of abundance is. When I think of how do I put out the most abundant energy that I possibly can? There are two things that come to mind. One is gratitude. Right? Gratitude, just being grateful for what I have, being grateful for this world, being grateful that I'm alive, being grateful for the miracle that is life, right? Because the truth of the matter is the fact that we're even here is pretty miraculous. The fact that they live and exist and I grew them, also miraculous. Like just being grateful of the miracle of life is a really great way to feel abundant, right? And for me, I have a very specific visual in my head of what abundance feels like. And it is me and my partner on a boat. Last summer, the summer of 24, we rented a boat with my family. We were in Arkansas and Derek and I went to pick up the boat and my parents and my sister and the kids all stayed behind and we're like, we'll pick up the boat. We'll come pick you guys up. There's a dock at the resort we're staying at. So we're taking the boat back and it's just me and Derek on the boat. So we drive there, we pick it up, we get on the boat. We're boating back, obviously, to pick everybody up. And it's just the two of us. And I'm in like this Chris Stapleton season of life right now. So we're listening to Chris Stapleton radio on Pandora and it's just Derek and I. It's kind of a cool morning. I think I still even had like long sleeves on or was kind of covered up in some way in my bathing suit. He is driving the boat and like I have never in my life felt more free. And it's probably not true, but that's the way that I capture that feeling of abundance is what did it feel like? I didn't have a care in the world. There was nowhere else I needed to be. There was nothing to fix. There was nothing to do. I was free. I was safe. I was secure. I was in love. Okay. So to me, that's the feeling of abundance. So when I want to feel abundant, I can picture being on that boat and what it felt like, and I can feel the wind in my hair, and I can hear the music in my head, and I can feel the sun on my face. To me, that's the feeling of abundance. What's bananas about that is it has nothing to do with money. It has zero to do with money. So that's what we mean by what we put out, we get back. Because when I put out that freedom of like total, that feeling of freedom, that's what I'm saying, of just total freedom, like to me, that's what abundance feels like. So again, pick whatever your thing is. What does health feel like, right? What does a loving relationship feel like? Doesn't really matter, right? But what you put out, you get back, because your energy is what creates for you. Most of us have just been putting out an energy that is in response to what we're seeing. And then we just get more of what we see, which is why we kind of have this Groundhog Day thing going on. Okay. The most important part of this, as I kind of wrap us up for today, is the idea of, now that you know that you're the creator of your reality, you can no longer operate in what we call victim consciousness. I learned about victim consciousness from my mentor. Her name is Stacey Baronfuss. She's the founder of a company called Soul Charge. But learning about victim consciousness is, the world is happening to me. Look at all these shitty circumstances. Look at all these bad things that have happened to me. Oh, poor me. And it is a consciousness that the world has taught us to live in, is victim consciousness, that I have no control over this. It is the interest rates, it's the market, it's the economy, it's the algorithm, it's the social media platforms, it's how hard I work, it's do I know the right people, it's where I live, right? It's putting all the power outside of you. So you're going to hear us talk a lot on the show about victim consciousness. Victim consciousness is the idea that the world is happening to me and I have no control. We don't berate ourselves for creating things we don't like, but we certainly do not live in the victim consciousness, which again, ultimately to me means that I am powerless. We operate from the creator identity. And the creator identity says, if I am the creator of my reality, all these things in here, I have to take responsibility for them. And then I have to decide that I want to create something else by shifting my identity and by shifting my energy. That is the work. But you first have to believe all of this for everything else that we're going to talk about in this podcast to work for you, to feel good for you, to align for you, right? Because if you don't believe it, you're going to have a really hard time making it work for you. So the first thing I recommend you do is, what do I need to do to get it into my heart? My heart, I'm giggling. For those of you watching the video, I said heart and I pointed to my head, right? But what our head, our heart, like mind, body, soul is really what we're doing here. If we're fully honest, right? The mind is obviously the mind. Our body, our physical body is our soul, is what I was talking about. How do we make all of these things work together? How do we create this mind, body, soul connection so that we can intentionally create? That's what we're here to do. That's what I hope that you learn from this. That's what I hope you get from this show, is believing that you are the creator of your reality, and that when your mind, body, and soul works together, you can create whatever you want, no matter how crazy it feels. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community. If this show has touched you in some way, if you're loving it, share it with a friend, leave a review, subscribe, comment. The more people that we get this work into the hands of, I truly in my heart of hearts believe this is how we change the world, by teaching consciousness, by waking people up to their power. So you sharing this with someone in your life, it does that. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Uncensored Self Podcast. If you're walking away with a new perspective, some fresh inspiration, or the push you needed to show up as your uncensored self, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode, leave a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, success isn't about following somebody else's rules. It's about owning who you are, deciding what you want, and going after it unapologetically. Until next time, keep leading, keep creating, and stay uncensored.